Howdy y'all, I am Ice Gold, and spring has sprung. We are officially a week into March, and that means the 2024 spring update is about a month away from entering Test Realm. There's a lot of things to expect from it. Perhaps that Fairgrounds revamp that they teased recently. There's also the new Gauntlet with upgrades to the Nightmare set for level 170. They're doing the new template with that. Or not new template, but updated template. But the main thing that I am excited for is the Arc 2 spellements that the devs have said they want to drop with this spring update. The rank 7 through 10 spells will finally be receiving upgrades, and I'm honestly excited to see what they do for a lot of them. That being said, this update will be an inflection point in Wiz history when it comes to the Ice School. Every month or so, I make a long video talking about Ice and how bad it is and how it could be fixed, but the devs have had a history of not listening to the community when it comes to making Ice better. Now, I could talk for a while about how Ice could become a lot better in PvP with this update, but I want to stick to PvE because this will be the devs' only opportunity to do right by us Ice mains for probably a while, since I doubt they'll consider changing Frost Giant like ever again, let's be real. So I've talked at length about how Frost Giant is a complete joke compared to the other school's 7-pip AoEs. It does 130 less base damage than the next lowest spell, which, might I add, loses a ton of base damage just because it's a drain. So, you know, just in case you were wondering what was going on there. Additionally, just a quick history lesson. Back in summer 2020, the design team looked at the 7-pip AoEs and decided to buff 5 of them, leave one alone, and nerf the last one. Yeah, I'll give you 3 guesses as to which one of the 7 got nerfed. Their reasoning for buffing 5 of them was because they're quote-unquote milestone spells. We get them at level 48, which is a milestone since we're finishing the first arc around there. And historically, these spells have been quote-unquote above the curve, which is what the devs use to determine how much damage a spell is supposed to do. Because they're milestone spells, the devs decided, alright, you know, we can leave these above the curve, not apply the 25% damage penalty that most AoEs get, since players get them at an important time in their Wizard's journey, except in Ice's case. Frost Giant was barely above the curve before, at 475 damage with the stun, but for no discernible reason, the devs decided to bring it down to 460 with the stun. Could never tell you why they decided to do that. But hey, you know, all the more reason to buff it in this update. A big thing to mention is that pretty much every single Ice main out there does not care about, you know, this stun all enemies for one turn thing. I can speak for everyone when I say that removing the stun in favor of adding 2 more pips worth of damage is what we want. We don't want a spell that does, you know, absolutely meat damage with a stun attached. We want to be able to defeat mobs and bosses without having to rely on shads to use, you know, real actual hits that do real actual damage. Another problem we all have with the stun is that we never get to actually use it. We either stack the extra buff so that this, you know, pool noodle of a spell can actually kill the boss, or we don't kill the boss because, you know, again, awful damage, and the boss is just, you know, stun immune anyway. And I have seen mains of other schools talk about removing the stun immune feature because it makes, you know, just stuns totally useless in a lot of cases, especially when pretty much all of the mobs and bosses in the later worlds, especially in Arc 2, you know, especially when they have that mechanic going on. But it just goes right back to that first point about how taking 1 extra round to compensate for the trash damage will make the stun redundant anyway because it never has a chance to even happen. If the stun could get removed, that would be great, because they've actually removed utility from another spell that did trash damage and just made it into a pure damage hit, and it became a staple overnight. That spell was Power Nova, and it used to do 470 damage and apply an AoE weakness. Worse than Giant used to be, you know, but the devs made it good, and this is the biggest example that I could give you of the devs doing the right thing with a spell change. They've made a 7-pip AoE spell great before, so, you know, no reason they can't do it again, right? Another thing to touch on is Ice's DPP, or damage per pip. The devs have said before that Ice and Life have the same DPP at 83. Just so we're clear, 83 times 7 is 581, so already Giant should be doing a minimum of 580 without the stun, which is an improvement of 120. So then, why does Forest Lord do an average of 650 if they had the same DPP? Well, dear viewer, This is because of DPP acceleration. Ratbeard has gone on record and said that there is a 12% damage acceleration with every pip that a spell costs, because there needs to be incentive for using higher pip spells as opposed to spamming low pip spells to deal the same amount of damage. User Rill in the official Discord, while talking about Fire Dragon's damage, gave this equation to find the damage value of a spell. It looks real complicated, I know, but in Frost Giant's case here, this would equal out to 640.76, which would round down to 640, obviously. So there you have it. Frost Giant, provided it loses the stun that no one likes, would do 640 base damage. There you go, design. I did the math for you. Time to add this into the game, yeah? The reason I called this a major inflection point in Ice's history earlier is because the designer who made the call to have the 7-pip AoEs ignore the 25% damage penalty years ago has not been with the company for a good couple years now. Likely the worst possible outcome where the stun gets removed would be the following. Arc 2 spellements get added, and Path A starts at 480 damage without the stun, since 640 times 0.75 is around there. And by Tier 5, after 685 spellements, we get a Frost Giant that does 525 base damage to all targets with nothing else attached. An improvement of, 65 compared to what it is now, but unbelievably unfair and short of where it needs to be, especially if the others are still doing mass without the penalty. Path B wouldn't be a saving grace. There's a good chance that it loses damage, actually, in favor of maybe becoming a hit and shield that no one would use either. Alternatively, the best possible outcome would be Path A starting at 640 without the stun, since that's where the math places it relative to the other spells, and by Tier 5 it would be doing 685 damage. It would reward the grind by being over the curve, just like spellements were originally intended to do. By now, though, you sort of get the point. This update has the power to make Ice viable again, and it's going to be our only opportunity as a community to steer the devs in the right direction on it in a month when Test Realm drops. It's my hope that they'll do the right thing off the rip, but if not, we gotta do as Cam said and get loud about it.
If you're asking if we're taking stun off, no. Not planning on it.
Not even on Path A?
Nope. That's a change. That's a change. Why would we want to change something? You know how people would react? They'll be like, I wanted this stun.
Add Path C. Just make Path C.
Yeah, the Tier 5 drive run would just be 500 damage and stun. Something like that. Still more than it does now. I don't know. Maybe if people are loud enough, we'll do something.
The last thing I want to mention here is just the overall grind for spellements. If there's any dev watching this, I really and truly hope that y'all don't use the same model y'all did for Arc 1, where we had to literally make new characters so we could get these spellements. Farming Chrysalis bosses for them should already be out of the question and off the table completely, but if the same model is used, then the spellements will be level locked and only drop in from late Arc 2 bosses. And I personally would be alright with the late Arc 2 bosses thing if max levels could farm them, but I mean, we'll have to see how that goes, right? Worst case, we as a community just need to rail against it during Test Realm because the Arc 1 model was a huge problem. But yeah, I never thought the day would come where Ice might become good again, but it's really gonna take some effort on the dev's part to ensure that Ice actually does become good again with these spellement paths. And it was like I was saying earlier, Path A would really be great if it got rid of the stun and just did like a ton of damage. Like, that is all that we want as Ice mains, and as we get closer to Test Realm, I may make another video talking about how the Arc 2 spellement paths for other schools could go, so stay tuned for that, I guess. But yeah, for now, thank y'all for watching. I've been Ice Gold. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave like 50 comments for the algorithm. My Discord is down in the description if you want to chat with me some more, and I will see y'all later.